Except for the risk.
Welcome back, as always, on every Thursday. Our favorite lawyer and tax attorney, Steve Moskowitz, in the house. And we're talking about the biggest disaster, real estate disaster in San Francisco history. The Millennium Towers that are sinking and leaning and falling at a rate of about an inch, I think, per year. And now Joe Montana, the great Joe Montana and his wife have filed a lawsuit against Millennium. And that is the actual lawsuit right there. And they said, hey, they weren't told about the sinking towers. They were given a discount when they bought one of the penthouses and to kind of help with the sagging sales. And now they're saying, hey, you misrepresented this whole situation. And how hard is this going to be to prove? What have you seen out of this lawsuit?
Well, we have to be a little bit careful because Joe was also a spokesperson. So, and Joe, after he stopped playing football, made a lot of money selling real estate. So someone would say, Joe, you know a little something about real estate. And he went on and he's saying, look, this is great and this is great. And then like a week later, oh, my God, you defrauded me. Now, that's possible. But this whole lawsuit, this is just like the football helmets. This is just like the concussions. This is, when did you know it? Because that's when all the trouble is. If you didn't know it, that's one thing. And then the question is, well, were you liable? Were you negligent for not knowing it? But if you did know it and you just lied, that's where the big damages come in.
So Montana's contention is that he became a spokesman, obviously unknowing that the tower is apparently heading for the sea. Is he also contending that the people who owned the tower, built the tower, knew about it when they signed him up to be their spokesman? Or is that a side issue or not even an issue at all?
Well, that's going to be hotly contested because he's going to say, look, because the bad guys get the maximum damages. If you knew, that's where the maximum damages are. It's much different than being negligent. So what happens is you have what's called sometimes the battle of the experts, where you have all these experts come in and say, look, I relied on this architect and this builder, and I thought it was great. And says, wait a minute, you knew. And also look at the regulatory person in San Francisco who said, wait a minute, there's some real concerns, and they kind of hushed him up. What happened with him? What did people know about that?
Well, who's the they that hushed him up?
Well, that's the big question. Was there so much economic pressure? Because one of the people for San Francisco came up and said, look, there's real problems with this. And all of a sudden, everything was built. So you'll see who put pressure on whom. All that's going to, or at least try to come out in the discovery. Who knew what about whom?
So what exactly, in a worst-case scenario for the Montanas, would their liability be?
Worst case, and again, that's worst case.
Yeah.
He knew, and he was just paid to lie and cheat people, and he went out and he did that. Now, I can't imagine Joe doing that, but the bottom line is that would be the worst case, where he knew and he sold it anyway. Just he stole from people.
Well, but he's suing them now, so if he...
Well, right, but he's on both ends of this. Right now, this is Joe is suing them and saying, hey, you cheated me. But the problem is right before he did that, he was coming out saying, this is just the greatest place. Remember, he was showing those pictures. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. You're lucky to get this place. So when did he know? Because there was a very short time between being allegedly a perpetrator and a victim.
But if he knew and he's lying, then why would he go to the process of actually filing a lawsuit, knowing that he's probably going to get caught up in it as well as the spokesperson? You
should see what people do. And again, you know, a lot of money is involved. And there's not something else, too. What about Joe's name? That is a big valuable asset, and one of the things he has to worry about is say, wait a minute, he became associated with this, and now people would say, oh, what's that, Sinking Joe, and it could ruin his opportunities to get other endorsements. That's a big deal.
Is his chance of winning the lawsuit benefited by the fact that so soon after he signed on to this, that the word about the building came out? I mean, because clearly this didn't all of a sudden happen 4 days after he signed on. I mean, I presume that would be his contention. You could not have figured this out in the time between I signed on and...
Sure, that's going to be the argument. And again, a big deal is who knew what when. Because everyone's going to say they didn't know, they didn't know, they didn't know. That's going to be the big deal. Because
there are so many sides of this, because the city's involved, obviously, Millennium's tried to sue the city and Salesforce because of those two buildings. I mean, even if he wins, is he ever going to see the money? Is he ever...
Well, there's a lot of deep pockets in here. But then, again, what happens is people with money set up shell corporations. So they say, well, look, I didn't sell it to you. This company did, and they don't have any assets. So we'll see, and then they'll try to pierce it. Wait a minute, you directed this, you should be directed. There's going to be an awful lot to fight about. There's going to be lots of work for lawyers in this.
Anything stand out in this that you looked at?
there's a lot of things, and basically he said he's been cheated, but he was the spokesman too, and it was just like you were saying, it was so close, so
this
close.
is something that could stay in the courts for a long time.
This will be lots of work for lawyers and lots of work for us to talk about.
All
Billable
right.
hours.
That happens.
Oh, it happens.
Thanks, Steve.
Always.
See you next week.